will be discussing selling to enterprise, acquiring clients in enterprise, and also keeping them, and how you do that where you're not an enterprise company yourself. We're preparing that with some amazing people that I'm going to present to you right now. I'm just going to introduce myself first. So my name is Lara. I've started working when I was 17 years old. I was selling peanuts at the fun fair. And it's been 21 years, and I know it doesn't show because of this beautiful light, but it's been a while that I'm in sales. 15 years ago, I started to work as a Wolf of Wall Street style type of sales. And something like 8 years ago, I entered a company called Dataiku that some of you probably know. And yay! and I learned about enterprise sales and how to not be that of a Wall Street wolf person, but how to understand what is sales cycle, what are your counterparts, and we're going to talk about this topic today with some fantastic people. So I'm going to welcome on stage Julie. Hey, Julie, you can applaud her, please. Thank you. So Julie's the VP of Marketing at Parloa in Berlin. Yay! She's specializing in SaaS for the last 10 years. She founded also Women in SaaS. Thank you. Parloa is an AI tech that makes client experience impeccable. And they raised over 66 million euros in Series B. And they work with clients like Swiss Life or Decathlon. Our next panelist is going to be Stijn. Can you join us, Stijn? So Stijn is the co-founder of Collibra. 16 years of experience serving enterprise clients. And he told us, when we're preparing this panel for you guys, when it comes to making money, you can't be stubborn. Collibra reached a valuation of 5.25 billion euros in 2021, billion with a B. And they are leaders in data governance. Our next panelist is Rich. So Rich is principal at Octopus Venture. Yes, we have a VC in the place, so we're going to get their point of view too. It's a UK European fund with over 1.8 billion with the B AUM and more than 200 companies in their portfolio. Rich invested in more than 20 companies in the last 6 years, and he's at the board of 5 of them. Octopus is also certified a B Corporation. That means that they care about the planet, about the people. So bravo for that. And the last person we're going to have with us today is Gabriel Frasconi. Gabriel is VP and GM of Southern Europe and Central Europe at Freshworks with over 20 years of experience in sales, almost beating me at that, and including 10 plus years in SaaS. Gabriel also started 2 incubators here in Station F. For the record, Freshworks, the company he works with, completed its IPO in 2021 and continues growing with AI-powered customer and employee engagement solution. Thank you all for being with me today. Yes. So we're going to start with a... Test. Is it okay? Yeah? We're going to start with a very interesting... Yeah, so I made the slides myself. I hope you're going to love them. They're a lot of fun. So we're going to start with understanding the sales cycle. So basically, sales cycle, when you sell to enterprise, can be pretty long, pretty complex. I want to have your take on that, and I really want to know how do you make the sales cycle shorter, or how do you see the companies you work with make this sales cycle shorter? I would like to start with you, Rich, and tell me, what did you observe?
Thank you. Well, obviously, I don't personally make the sales cycle shorter. I'm the one beating people up about it. I think for
love you, VCs.
Exactly, true to form. I think for us, as a VC investor, we typically sit on the board of the businesses, try and help there. We're a minority investor, and it's really important that the companies feel that it is their company to run below that. Clearly, we can support and step in and help, but we try and stay at board level. And the most important thing for us there is the predictability of the revenue. And I think building in that predictability is the really challenging thing for early stage businesses. So I think understanding and making sure that you know what the sales cycle is really the first part of that. Then from there, we have a few different experts that we can help our companies with to shorten it. I think a specific example that comes to mind in the portfolio is a revenue intelligence platforms like the Gong, Sales Loft, actually getting under the skin of the calls that you're having, picking up those objections, the data you can get through the platforms, the integrations they have, for us has seen actually quite a big impact in some of the companies that have implemented it.
Yeah, you told me that using Gong, for example, for one of the company of your portfolio made a huge difference, like really divided the sales cycle by almost 2 or something like that.
Yeah, I think they brought it down from probably 9 months to 8 months, which again, it's only a month.
But it's not divided by 2.
Well, not quite half, but I think like anywhere that you can stabilize or improve is a huge benefit. We see the opposite, where enterprises actually, for no good reason, end up unfortunately extending the sales cycle on the back end, and that for our portfolio companies is often the challenge in just maintaining it.
Yeah, absolutely. Stan, I see you doing that with your head. What do you think about like the length of the sales cycle when you sell to enterprise?
Yeah, so does the mic work? Okay, because I just took it from there. Thank you. So I think it's a little bit of a hopeful question that you can actually shorten the sales cycle. I mean, thanks for not being too hard on your portfolio companies, but still pushing to shorten it. But sometimes you cannot shorten it. I mean, if you have a small company that you sell to, the company is 50 to 100 people, you see somebody, you show them your software, they like it, they can buy it. But when you go into a larger enterprise, thousands of employees and above, they just have a whole process as to how they buy. And your influence over that process is almost zero. Right, so you can try to shorten the sales cycle all you want, but in the end you still have to go through the process that the enterprise is imposing upon you. The key trick, I think, to shortening it, because if you don't know what you're doing, which is what we were doing in the beginning when we first started, we had to sort of learn everything ourselves. And if you don't know what you're doing, your sales cycle is going to be long because you don't know what the sales process is. Right, but when you go and interact with an enterprise, and you find a champion who's going to sort of navigate you through the maze that large enterprises can be, you first have to check, has that person ever bought really software, right, at that company? In other words, do they know the sales process on their end?
Great first question to ask.
And then you have to just be ready with all the things that they're going to need, right? They're going to need maybe a business case, for example, right? So first enterprise sales you do, you don't have a business case, an ROI calculator, well, you're going to spend time making it. That is time that if you have it ready, that you can save. Right? So, and they have a whole lot of questions. Oh, meet our security specialist as a contractor, and here's the contractor with 1,000 questions, asking security questions about your solution. So if you are not readily quickly filling that out, you are delaying your own sales cycle. And they have like all sorts of hurdles that they put up that you have to, and hoops that you have to jump through. And you can shorten it as much as you can control it, but in the end, it's very much up to them. I think one of our longest sales cycles ever, this was when we were younger, I think it took us 5 years before the bank became a customer. Yeah. Multiple tries, time. Of course. Yeah, I know.
Congrats. I would like to have your take on that, Gabriel, too, because you've worked not only at Freshworks, but for like 20 years. What have you seen? Because you told us, Stan, and even preparing for it, that you cannot really shorten, but you can still try. You can still try to control it. You can still try to understand at least the process of your dreams. Maybe it doesn't come true, but at least you can have an idea what's best for you. I want to have your take, Gabriel, all the companies you work with. What did you see that was the most performing, like, action to make or a process to put in place to make sure it shortens?
Yes, so before shortening, I think it's important to be in control and to not have it slip. Because one of the largest issues in sales, and especially in publicly traded company, you have quarters to deliver and you can't miss a quarter. So if you commit, like we are at Freshworks closing Q3 now, Monday, so we have many deals not lined up. So how do we avoid slipping of those deals before even shortening them? So that would start, I would start with qualification. And I've seen many, many sales being a bit shy in the qualification. Oh, I have this prospect, they're reaching out to me. They say, our competitor, they have increased the price, the renewal is in 3 months, they want to discuss with us, it's great, it's a great. Yeah, but how do you qualify? How do you challenge them? Like, where's the company event? Where's the economic buyer? Do they have the budget? If you send them an invoice by this date, will they be able to pay that? Who will decide? Exactly to your point. You discuss very often with people that buy software maybe once a year, maybe once every 5 years. You sell software 10 times a day. So try to put yourself in your shoe. What does it take for you to decide? What's even the paper process, the legals, what the CIO and all the execs there, how is this lined up? When you are convinced, how do you go up the value chain? And don't be shy, would be my first advice as a salesperson. We are in the business relationship here. It's very normal to qualify. It's not because someone asks you something that you have to say yes. I have an old boss who says selling starts when you say no. And there is an element of that, especially in qualification. You just know later than yesterday he was in this example discussing with a prospect, they're using one of our competitor solution. And I definitely ask him, say, look, if you want to reduce our competitor price, just be transparent. And maybe I will give you an offer that is cheap, present that to them, and it costs me 5 minutes, and that's okay. Instead, if you want to run a process where we'll shadow your operations, identify the use cases, the pain points, what else you can get out of a platform that will increment the value that you're getting, then we can have a conversation. And being transparent, actually, you are even more credible. So, long story short, qualify hard with respect, but we are in a business relationship and it's normal. Then if you fast forward to try to mitigate the slippages and maybe pull forward a bit some deals, what is very important is a mutual close plan. Too often, sales, they say yes, or I want a demo, or here is a demo. You want a pricing, here is a price. You want a discount, here is a discount. But then what's next? What will it take them for them to decide? So if you fast forward to the closing date, that very often is the end of month, end of a quarter, whatever date you want, what are all the steps that you jointly, mutual close plan, that you jointly with the customer need to do to get to the signature and to get the paperwork signed? And this mutual close plan, let's not over-engineer that. It's just who does what from you, from the customer, the contact name, the due date, then you are jointly accountable on that. So you want to demo by this date, yeah, but then we may want, as an ask, to have a conversation with the CIO, with the head of sales or head of marketing, whatever you sell, with the legals, with the security team. So we need to peel that back, all the decision steps. And when the customer or the prospect misses one of the gates, then you can tell them, say, look, we had an agreement here that's the process we'll go through. You are missing your point. Is this really a deal here? Is this the time to pull the plug off? Is this time to say no? Is it the time to escalate? So being accountable on both ends, definitely this is what helps drive the last minute surprises, because too often before the closing, at the end of quarter, you have a salesperson that say, yeah, shit happened, it's out of my control. Well, it's not in your control because you did not ask all the questions. You did not know what were all the steps on both ends to mutually agree on. So that will be my advice, to have a strong mutual close plan that is mutual. So mutually agreed is very important, that you both on both ends will be accountable on.
Absolute. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, so just really quickly from like a big bad VC perspective on that, like quarter end closing to us is really important. We'll invest in a set of forecasts and we'll expect businesses to a degree that they can to hit those forecasts, and so making sure that the customer is aligned to the closing plan timing, because unfortunately if it closes on Tuesday and it's the 2nd of October, that's a Q4 number and that's what you're building and trying to sell us on, rather than having that benefit of getting it into Q3. So just that alignment on timing is so important, because ultimately the customer isn't thinking about your quarter end, they're just thinking about when they're going to go live and needing it.
Absolutely, and what I want to say is that at each stage of the sales process, you're selling something different. So when you're an SDR, what you're selling is a first meeting or a demo. And when you are in the sales cycle, what you're selling is a plan of action, a mutual plan of action. And it can be a simple Excel that you agree on with the client. Also, you talked about qualification. It's qualification and disqualification. And one of the great way of not losing time is knowing your ICP and knowing who you're talking to. So, Julie?
Yes, I was just
floor is
going to
yours.
say, I think we have to start at the very beginning. Do you all know your ICP? You know, of course, you're in later stages of the company, but perhaps in the beginning you do not specifically know. And I think this is key to also find out and really qualify hard against your ICP. That means help your sales team focus by qualifying certain deals out. Because if they drag on and on and on, I'm saying 5 years or hearing 5 years here, it can mean they cannot focus on the ones that flow through much, much faster. So I think qualifying out by knowing what your ICP is, that one's key. And I think you alluded to it. I think that's also important. Understand what could be your blockers. So first of all, be very proactive with the elephant in the room. You should know, you hear all the objections from other sales calls. If it's always data privacy, address it immediately, talk to your customers about it. Don't just try to wriggle around it. I think that's key. And if you know that, let's say, the IT team is always the one that is a blocker, then make sure there's this whole, perhaps in the mutual alignment plan, that they are also invited to a joint buyer group meeting and address these elephants there. I think these two are key, and maybe as a marketer, I'm going to add one more thing. It's not something that you can quickly do right before the end of the quarter, but what we recently did was we did a big conference, or can also be a smaller event, for your existing deals and get them excited about your brand. This can help you also fast forward deals. At this event, let's say, they can all get together, they can meet all your executives, they can learn to love your brand, and this can definitely also then move forward the deals and accelerate them.
This is fantastic. I love it. And as a salesperson, I would have loved to have someone like you around me to do that. We're going to talk now about retention. So I'm going to show you this. It's actually a lot of fun. Oh no, you cannot really see it. It's from Winning by Design. It's called the bow tie. It's a way of representing the sales cycle. That instead of doing a funnel like this, where you can see you have leads and at the end you have deals, we want to talk about retention. Why? Because this represents the first part of your funnel, and the commit is the signature. But what happens is that all of that costs you a lot of money. You pay all your salespeople, the marketing, everyone, to make sure the deal happens. So this is the cost of acquisition. Then you want to make sure that there is no churn, and hopefully there is like upsell and cross-sell to make sure your business is relevant. So I want to show you that this represents how to make recurring revenue. You need to make recurring impact for your clients. And at Winning by Design, they give a lot of free materials, and I think it's very interesting. So recurring impact, how do you measure that? So I would like to start again with you, Julie, on this topic of retention, because it starts there, and it happens like after selling.
And here what I find important is that you also increase the stickiness with your customers. And the way I like to do that is to increase all the touch points they have within your own company. So I always make sure that our partners and our customers know also a lot of people within, let's say, the marketing team and other teams. Because if they know me, obviously they can reach out to me, I can reach out to them if there's also ways to present them publicly. Because we want to help them also shine out there. If they associate your brand with something positive, they win within their company, they might even get an interview or a presence at stage. This is something super valuable for them and their career, so you can help them do that. Plus, the more people they know within the company, the more touch points they have, the stickier they are. That's my tip to you.
Absolutely, it can be absolutely part of the deal. The impact is like the ROI they're gonna have like buying your product, but it's also a bunch of other things that cannot be measured but have a lot of value for them. Do you, Richard, when you invest in companies or look at it, do you look at the whole cycle this way?
I actually think we look at the second half more early on, particularly kind of Series A, Series B, which is where we're looking to invest. Ultimately, if we're not really comfortable that there's a viable business there in the long term, we can't even get excited about the growth because they've got a huge problem retaining the customers, and then that leads us to think more about value proposition, product market fit, and we spend a long time there. So I think the second half, the retaining the customer, not even growing the customer, just ensuring you're retaining the business that you have is incredibly important.
And how does it work? Like, for example, at Freshworks, how do you do that? Like, because then you sign the deal, then it goes to CSM, I guess. How do you all work together? Is it like divided between key account managers, CSMs? Can you tell us a little bit on how you work on retention?
Yeah, well, definitely
from
the
your
organization can play a part in retaining and upselling in existing customers. So many organizations, starting from us, they have a new business sales team and an account management or an expansion sales team. So you acquire customers and you grow your customers. And the account managers are there to expand our existing install base. They work hand in hand with the customer success team. So that's you control that. You control the utilization and making sure that you have a real focus and lens applied on your customer base. Now, and I'm a guy that tries also to be strategic and down to earth. So the down to earth part is visit your customers. Too often you sit at your desk, and I've seen that at being Freshworks or in other organizations. You sit at your desk and you wait for the customer to call. You wait for them to expand and add 2-3 users here, add 10 users there. What's going to happen? Probably in the next renewal, they have been discussing with someone else. So get out, be in front of the customer, visit them. And not just to have lunch. We love doing that in France. It's important. But also visit them, understand how they use your solution. Because you weren't in the pre-sale cycle. Often it's no longer the same salesperson. So you even lose the history of what was sold. But you promise something. And very, very often, they use the solution in their own way because their business is unique and they tweak a bit the solution to fit their use cases, to fit their processes. And they generate some great value out of that. Just understand this. Besides, feature function, but definitely what they have done with that. And when you start creating this intimacy, then you'll speak their language and you start uncovering other people. Can you introduce me to this guy and this other person and maybe to this exec or to this other department, to these other personas? This is how you create the trust, the legitimacy, and then ultimately expanding that within the account. But frankly, that all starts, get out of your desk and go and visit your customers and making sure you understand how they're using your product. If you do that well, honestly, it's 90% of the job that is already done.
Yeah, and you get fantastic success stories also that you can tell to your other customers, and you can get introductions. So in the last 16 years, Stan, you probably had clients that had churned. You have like amazing history with your clients, ones that took 5 years to get signed, but also ones that repeated, became your best clients. Can you tell us one or two stories on maybe losing a client or maybe something that you actually did put in place in your company that changed everything in terms of retention?
Oh yeah, we've put a lot of things in place over 16 years, and one of the aspects is that you always have to evolve. You always have to learn what works and what's going to work for the future. So there's no one set model that is going to make it work for you. But I think it starts, like you mentioned on the funnel, by thinking past the sale, right? We might think in this, we're selling, but the customer is thinking on the right-hand side, right? So you have to forget about the moment in the middle for a second, and you have to, from first touch point, think, what is the project going to look like? When are you going to start? What are you trying to achieve? Things we've put in place and customers we've lost, So I'll tell you a recent story about a customer we lost, which was very surprising. So surprises happen. No matter how much you try to manage churn and meet the customer, and maybe even on the basis of data from your cloud, you can sort of see, rather than meeting them, you can see through the data how they're doing and influence it that way. But we had this recent case whereby everything was perfect, and we had actually just had a meeting, right? Because we were closing the quarter, last quarter, and we had a meeting with the customer. And we were there with our champion on site, and we were saying, okay, we're going to expand, because the best way to do customer success is to grow the ARR. Right? A customer that is growing is a customer that is being successful. And everybody was saying, yes, let's go, we're going to expand by some more users, whatever it was. And a week later, they just canceled the whole thing. Right? They were a successful customer, they were going to expand, and a week later they canceled completely out of nowhere. And what had happened, and that's why it's so important to know your customer really well, what had happened is that our champion didn't realize that their buying process had changed, and that number that he now normally could get approval on himself now had to pass by the CIO. And the CIO didn't know anything about their project, they're in cost savings mode, so they just said, we're not doing this anymore. And the whole thing fell away. So even if you are there with the customer, even if you have data about them being successful, in different times, you might need different methods to keep the customers being successful. So you do have to manage your churn and learn what works and what doesn't.
And probably keep qualifying them all the time, because qualification is the basics. I think we'll agree on that. Our last topic. Oh no, you cannot see it. It was so cute. It's a little kitty that says they know. Our next topic is about all of our clients right now have basically internet. Now they also have ChatGPT, and they know that we're here to sell them stuff, but they also know about their markets, about what they need, and also they know the pricing of everyone. So I would like to start with you, Gabriel. I want feedback from the field. Is that you have someone in front of you that knows about their needs, their budget. They know everything, basically. So the role of the salesperson, what is it exactly?
I would challenge that. And why I would challenge that, and that's back what I first said. When you are in a company like us and many of your companies, you have 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 customers conversation every day. The person you're discussing with, no matter how expert they are, they buy your software once every 3 to 4 to 5 years. So you are 1,000 times, million times more experienced than the person is in front of you. Maybe it's 2,000, 3,000 more experienced than the random one, but still, you are the expert. You need to behave as an expert. And that's what I always say to my sales team. Sometimes I'm shy, asking the question, challenging the process. You are the expert. And use the image, like when you go to a doctor, you don't tell them, oh, I have this disease, I need this medicine, and I need this cure, and I need this. No, they just ask you the question, where is it hurting? How were you feeling bad? So they qualify with you the question, and the doctor, you expect from him or from her that he's the expert, that he or she will tell you what you have, the disease, and the cure that is linked to that. You have exactly the same. Sometimes you have patients that say, yeah, I have this disease and I need this cure. Maybe they're right, but still, the doctor is there to qualify. Maybe there's something else. Maybe there are other issues. Maybe they need another cure. So that's the behavior that you need. You behave as an expert. You are an expert. You do that 10 times a day. They do this once every 5 years. So behave as such. Don't be too arrogant, neither. So you need to have the right balance. But the customers and the prospect, they see you as an expert. They come to you because you are the expert. They expect expertise from you. No matter how good they think they are, still you know thousands times more than they do. So make sure that you keep that in mind. Maybe I'm going sideways, but that's definitely the mindset that I want the team to have.
That's so funny because I want to tell you a very funny story because I'm a very funny person. I don't need glasses. I don't really need it. And when I started selling to enterprise, I bought some glasses, and I imagine I was the doctor, and I would take prescription and ask so many questions, and it worked. So it's funny that you talk about doctors. I really did that. Like, I was wearing glasses, and like, okay, what's your problem? And I needed that to put myself in the shoes of someone that knows. Just a little tip here. Anyway, Stan, during all those years, have you seen a difference between the way you sell to knowledgeable people since the beginning, but have you seen a difference in the way they bought before and they're buying right now, your customers?
Yeah, I think so, but our situation is maybe a little bit special. I mean, it's not unique per se, but it's also not that common necessarily. So we were fortunate in the market to be able to execute on a category creating strategy versus a category following strategy. So category following is Instagram exists and you're going to make an Instagram clone. Category creating is Instagram doesn't exist and you're going to make the first Instagram. So we had the situation whereby we were a data governance software vendor. We believed that was software, but the market believed, oh, but data governance, that's a people and process problem. So there is no software for it. It's a little bit like saying ERP is a people and process problem and then not make SAP or Oracle, right? So we decided, okay, we're going to category create this. And we were fortunate because we were lucky in the timing to market that the chief data officer, the boss of data, was a new role that was coming up. And in the beginning, let's say around 2010, there were literally only 15 of those, 15, around the world. Now, even those people did that job for the first time. Right? So even they didn't really know what they wanted. So I would say in the early stages, we had the benefit of discovering that themselves, like what do you need? And we were still agile enough at that time to play on those unknown needs. But if you go fast forward to today, now there are over 150,000 chief data officers worldwide. So at least they think they know what they're doing, which isn't true because that profession is also still evolving, and many of them are still doing it for the first time. Except now they're expected to know what they're doing. And now we have a lot more salespeople in the organization. So the salesperson might have joined us yesterday, as a matter of speaking. So for them, it's also the first time doing it. They don't have the 15 or 16 years of experience in their head that we have. And yes, you give them a lot of enablement and so on and so forth. But that doesn't mean they necessarily feel comfortable to put on their doctor glasses and ask the difficult questions, especially when the person on the other side has a C title in front of them, big boss of data, puts on a big suit and starts behaving like they know it all. Like, hey, we're going to do data governance this way, and you, Collibra, are doing it the wrong way. I need this. So it does, when a customer comes across very strongly, it can be very intimidating, especially if you're new to the company. But still, we know better in a way, right? So, because we've seen many customers whereby, we tell them you should do it this way, and they still do it another way, and then like 3 months later, 6 months later, 3 years later, they realize and they sort of wake up like, hey, yeah, you were actually right. But in the meantime, they've lost time and resources as well.
Absolutely.
So yeah, we've been fortunate. In the beginning, it was unknown, and we've helped set that standard of what this should be. But the category creating strategy also comes with the responsibility that you have to try to move the borders of that space, which means you have to be willing to try new things, but also fail in some of those new things. So the job is still there for us. Now, don't do category creating unless it's there for you in the market, because it takes a long time and it costs a lot of money.
Well, absolutely. Hence the glasses when you feel uncomfortable with a client that's older than you and that knows better than you. Richard, it really links super well with one of our conversation about blue clients and like blue ocean. What was it? Blue and red ocean startups is like creating a new market or actually going towards a market that's already existing. What have you noticed? So that it was not blue ocean.
Yeah, red ocean, blue ocean, kind of like competitors versus non-competitors. I think you're completely right, Stan. We like competitors for our startups. Everyone's spending marketing euros, trying to build the market together, talking about the problem. If you have competitors, it validates the market. And so even more congratulations for building the category on your own.
Yeah, thank you. We didn't really do it on our own. We were just lucky, but we did see many come and go over those years, yeah.
I want to make sure we have enough time for the last topic, but setting like the standards of your market is one of your biggest role. How do you do that?
I would actually like to add one important thing here, because we haven't talked about this at all now, but we are currently at the verge of a completely new era, and that is AI transformation. So I think we're all in a very, very similar position that you were 10, 15 years ago, because no one out there, and we are an AI company, so Parloa is that, we are there, no one really knows how to handle AI. What about data privacy? What if the AI does something they're not supposed to do? What does that mean for your customers? So we become these trusted advisors for them, because companies do not right now know what it will bring with them. If they buy an AI enterprise software, it's a completely different game. So they actually do not know, and we are experts in this. Not even we know it all, because legal changes all the time. We do not know what the EU AI Act will eventually bring. Many unknowns out there, but that brings us and the sales team, the marketing teams, into a position that is the trusted advisor and navigator in this new transformation. very exciting times, but also, of course, challenging for the sales team also.
That's a lot of fun. So now are you ready? I have a game for you. Are you up and ready? Okay.
Yes, everyone is. I can see it in their eyes.
So you're gonna try to understand what is our next topic, and it's gonna be the last for today. Are you ready? The one screaming it wins something. I don't know what yet.
It is about...
Scream it, come on.
Scaling?
Yay! We're gonna talk about scaling.
You win something.
At least one person understands my jokes. We're going to talk about scaling. It's going to be our last topic for today. So all of us have seen companies scaling or not scaling, or failing at scaling. So we're going to use our last 5 minutes to understand what is the most important thing to put in place to make sure that once you know your market, once you know what you're selling to whom, you can scale. We're going to start with you, Julie.
Okay, yes. I've worked, I think, in the last 10, 11 years in scale-up companies. I've seen many things that did not go right, and I learned from them too. One thing, and I think this is a crucial transition, you go from founder-led sales in the very beginning to enabling other people to do it. Very, very tricky situation. What has really worked well for us, though, is if you start or if you implement 2 very crucial roles in your company early on. First of all, that's sales enablement or commercial enablement, making sure that all the information is also scaled across the sales organization, and there's also revenue operations. So people know, where are what does the reporting look like across the bow tie, where are the problems lying. And maybe coming back to sales enablement, which is key, and it's also it's a fairly new role, but in order to scale very quickly, you need to make sure that everyone's on the same page. Products, there's new products that they will need to learn about, and all of a sudden it's not 45 people in the company anymore. 2 years ago for me, that was the case at Parloa. Now with 270, how do they keep up? And what our sales enablement team does, it comes up with bootcamps. Sellers are forced for 1 whole day into into a training that make sure they're up to date with all the things that happen in the meantime. I talked about AI. What does AI change for the customer? What are the latest adjustments? What are changes in the market? So these boot camps have worked super well in combination with certifications. So you can't just sit there and let someone else talk. Make your sellers certified. Also put that competitive edge in, and make sure that you also, continue this while you scale. That's one tip that has worked really well for me. And my tip to you, sales enablement and RevOps as very early on roles for your company.
I love this certification idea too. And when do you internalize it? Because I do that with my clients. Like now I'm an independent coach. I do these boot camps. When do you internalize it?
What do you mean, when do you internalize it?
When do you hire a resource to do that internally?
I mean, for us, it was very shortly after our series, Series A round.
Okay.
So, or maybe even before, but anyway, very early on.
So when you start working with Rich?
Absolutely.
Look forward to it.
We're already taken.
What about scaling, Rich? What have you observed, and what does seem to work for the companies you work with? Or what do you look at when investing?
So this is exactly the stage that we typically get involved with businesses, and in particularly in enterprise, clearly, which we're talking about. The biggest challenge that we see is companies transitioning from having their growth happening to them through the sales cycle that you can't sort of control, or you can only not control, to being in control of their growth and actually having the numbers that they can hit. So knowing where the new deals are going to come from each quarter, making sure that you have enough in your pipeline, I think is critical. So many businesses have poorly qualified pipeline that they're putting in there for investor reporting, going, well, this is how we'll hit the number. Being really disciplined in having the right qualified pipeline, knowing that they're going to close on time is, I would say, the most important thing, because so many companies aren't able to make that transition from having their growth happen to them to controlling their growth and being able to drive it. And for us, that predictable revenue thing is one of the most important things as investors. The worst thing that we can have as an investor is bad news late on as a surprise. If the bad news comes early, that's fine. We can adjust and work out what we do. But late surprises that numbers are going to be missed hugely is the thing that ultimately will mean that your board hugely loses confidence in you.
Yeah, as a VP, I imagine it's kind of the same thing, right? You want to control what's going on. What have you seen that really works in terms of scaling? What has been done before and after?
Yeah, so I always refer to this formula. So ARR is the result of pipeline times talent. So you need to have pipeline and the right talent. So if we zoom on, and I agree on the pipeline, but it's the right pipeline, the more you scale, maybe the ICP evolves. Also the talents, Julia discussed about enablement and making sure to grow the people. You also need to be transparent. Do you have the right staff? Maybe the staff you had when you were a smaller, a younger company, maybe they are no longer the ones that are adapted to grow with you. So performance management is something key. Let's grow the ones who can be grown. Let's also recruit new talents that will help you do the scale. And one maybe tactic that I have seen a lot is, especially on the sales team, is the comp plan. The comp plan drives behavior. And I just take an example. In one of our previous companies, we wanted to have way more multi-year contracts. And the longer the contract, the more the commissions. From 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, there were the different kickers. And guess what? From day one, the comp plan was implemented. All of a sudden, all the contracts sold were sold on 4 years contract term, because this is where the commissions were the higher for the sales team. So that's maybe a bit tactical, but that's important. When you want to scale, you may want to change behavior. That will start also with the comp plan. So think about it. You have the right comp plan to drive the right behavior to continue growing.
So I'm going to end with you because during these years, you did scale your company and you did scale your sales. So I'm very curious on how you did it and what tools also you implemented. Maybe I'm thinking about onboardings. I'm thinking about other like very concrete ideas and tools that here everybody could use.
Yeah, I don't know if you have enough time for all of those stories, but I'll try to pick out a few. So first of all, I'm agreeing with all of the things before, right? So the quote-unquote back office, the sales enablement, the revenue operations, and so on, very important. The incentives. I remember, I almost see scaling with us through different leadership lenses. We had somebody for the first 0 to 10 million in ARR, then for 10 to 100 million in ARR and beyond. You could almost look at each of those phases was done by a different commercial leader. And I remember the one talking about incentives for the 10 to 100 jump. I remember that sales leader, Phil, smart person, very experienced, and worked harder than I've ever seen anybody work. And he felt like a general who was leading the troops from the front. And his incentive plan was very simple. He wanted every salesperson to be able to make $1 million. And he said that out loud, and he also had a few that did it, right? So he had examples that showed it was possible. Now all of the salespeople wanted to be those people, right? Now, of course, not everybody made it because you had to have all the right numbers to make those numbers. But essentially it showed the power of that incentive. At the time that we needed to really rally the troops, we had to hire a lot of more new salespeople. Just to get to our next target of numbers. And then at that stage, it was, think about it. You say, we just have to hire 100 salespeople and then, we'll sell 100 times more. Well, how are you going to find 100 salespeople, right? So finding 100 salespeople might require that you first hire a small recruiting team so that you can find qualitative talent fast enough to actually execute on those quarter numbers and whatnot. So if I can give one scaling advice, I would look at the planning of it, right? So let's say that you're currently in 0 to 1, right? You want to get to your first $1 million in ARR. Well, that's founder-led, right? That's where the founders have to figure shit out. And then you go to the next stage, pick your stage. You go to 5 million or 10 million. You pick your target, and then you plan the organization you need to achieve that, right? And that's the whole organization, not just the sales part of the organization. Then once you start getting closer to that number, so you're getting to 5, you have to start thinking about, okay, where do we want to get next year? Do we want to jump to 6? Is that enough? Is that meeting our ambition, or do you want to jump to 10 or 20? And then you almost literally plan the organization you need to achieve that next stage of scale. Now, of course, it doesn't mean because you organize that way that you're going to get it, right? You still have to continuously fiddle with the machine as well. And maybe a last bit there. A lot of times when you're a more technical co-founder like me, you start thinking about, oh, we have so many customers already, we have to come up with a new product. Well, unless you've already captured a large portion of your market, the new product is not going to help you anymore. Because now, you're coming with features every month. Well, those salespeople still have to learn them and get the certification and the bootcamps. They can't learn new stuff every day, right? They can't learn to new features of the product every day, and you expect them to be successful, let alone a new product. And even worse, if the product is for a new persona, because now they have to learn to speak to a whole new set of users in the organization. It doesn't just work like that. It's a lot harder. So focus long enough on the core product and the core offering before you start jumping to, we need 10 new products. And at the stage you're at, the numbers also change. Like, for example, in our case, we're not happy if we have a new product that gives us 5 million in new ARR. I mean, of course, you're happy with every dollar or euro, but ultimately at a certain stage, you're like, okay, we need the product to deliver 50 million in ARR this year, or 200 million in ARR, right? So your targets really do change across all of the changes, and your organization has to change alongside with it. Or in short, look at yourself as being a different company every year. Now, don't forget how taxing that is on you, the founders and the management team, but also how taxing that regular changes on the people that work with you to achieve those goals. So change as much as you can and as much as you need to, but keep a good pace.
Thank you so much for being with us today. Thank you so much for attending. Don't hesitate to come and join us and ask us any questions on our different fields. And thank you.
Thank you very much.